All right, what's going on, everybody, man? Welcome back to The Truth with Najeh Wilkins, man. I'm your host. Hope you guys are excited to talk some college football. It is officially week 10, so we got a lot to get into. I'm gonna clean my camera here real quick for y'all. But it's officially week 10, man. We got a lot to talk about, man. Big time matchups. I think this week in terms of matchups is way better than what we had last week, in my humble opinion. More kind of defining wins and defining games coming up. You lose, you're probably out of the CFP. This comes at a critical juncture in the season because remember, for most teams, you only have 4 games left, right? This is really it. It's crazy to think that college football is already here, but we are entering into November. Halloween is on Friday. So if you ain't got them key critical wins, you could be in a world of trouble. So lots to discuss today. We'll go to some Heisman candidates as well. Obviously, some guys we need to pay attention to, keep an eye on moving forward. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss obviously the top matchups, biggest winners and losers, and obviously we'll talk about some of the biggest headlines, man. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with the headlines, and one of the big ones, man, was obviously Brian Kelly being fired. Right, that was obviously massive, news. This past week in LSU, and we posed the question, obviously on the channel here earlier in the week, and we talked about like what Deion Sanders saying is kind of a quick fix. What I'm saying in a degree, and is it at that point, where college football, if you don't win, you're out, and it begs the question, and we kind of see it here a little bit. With obviously LSU moving on. Now, there's been some things that have come out obviously about Brian Kelly from former players and things like that have not been as thrilled with how he's treated them afterwards. Right, only when you could do something convenient for him. That's been several players that have come out. Parents of former players have come out and said that as well. So it's been a whole train wreck. But obviously, they got a great interim coach in the building that's taking care of things. And I think his name's Frank Smiley. He's doing a good job with their group and making sure to kind of uplift this team. He's already brought some alumni back in there. Ryan Clark was in the building this past week to check them out. So I think doing things the right way. But this is their hot board. You got Lane Kiffin. Obviously, he's going to have to make the decision. We've been talking about it on the channel. Will it be Florida or will it be obviously LSU, or does he just stay with Ole Miss? Now, we've seen several talk shows, national shows about just like Ole Miss not being necessarily the brand of the other ones, but like Coach Kiffin has a chance to turn around that program into it not being viewed as a tier 2 program in the SEC, more so it being viewed as a tier 1 program in the SEC. Now, it's going to take a time because when you think about tier 1s, you think obviously Alabama, you think about the Georgias, LSUs and things like that. But Kiffin definitely has all the resources he needs in order to make that program successful. It's just, can he get there? They haven't got to a CFP in his tenure just yet, but this looks like the most promising year. Big win last week on the road against a really good Oklahoma defense. They lit up for 431 yards, right, and 34 points. So they are on track to get to a CFP with only a couple of games left in the regular season. So he's obviously the main candidate. Marcus Freeman is another one, but according to some reports, he's turned down, obviously, Penn State and the LSU job per reports. And he's pretty much locked in on Notre Dame, which is obviously one of the biggest brands in college football. But he's obviously named on this list. Kenny Dillingham with Arizona State. Now, this year, Arizona State's had their up and downs. They've been winning some games. They've been losing some. Obviously, big wins over Texas Tech. They just lost last week. But obviously, would be a pretty good candidate for LSU. But remember, this is a high-pressured, high-leverage job. If you're not winning at a high level, that is an issue for their fan base. And you can lose a team pretty quickly. And that's not something you want. If you're losing your team pretty quickly, that is a problem. Jeff Brom from obviously Louisville, I don't really see that one as much. I'm saying making that jump from ACC to SEC. Obviously, Louisville has a pretty good program. They knocked off Miami this year, but I just don't see him making that move to LSU. Another name that's interesting is Eli Drinkwitz. Obviously, he recently signed an extension with Missouri, so obviously he would have to get out of that in order to have a chance to, go coach LSU. But it doesn't make sense. LSU, Missouri. I mean, obviously LSU is the bigger brand. That would make a lot of sense if he was deciding to make that move or make that jump. Right. The next one is Clark Kalia. Now that one makes sense. Now he's building something special, obviously, with that Vanderbilt program and what they have going and what they're building. But at the same time, do you want to stay and see what that is going to be at the end of the day? Like I said, one of their best starts since the 40s and 50s, right? Diego Pavia, they're recruiting at a high level. They're landing primetime prospects. They're doing pretty good in their portal work and stuff like that. they're a good football team, but he has a chance to resurrect Vanderbilt into a relevant SEC team when they've been at the bottom barrel for years. So same thing. Do you want to jump ship to a higher brand, or do you want to keep building the one you're building? Same thing goes into question, obviously, with Brent Key. When you talk about Brent Key, obviously, he's coaching the SEC under Coach Saban, Alabama, and everything like that. But this is his alma mater, and look at all the work he's put in the last few years with this Georgia Tech program, 7-6, 7-6, and now has them boys at 8-0 on the season. One of the best programs in the country, to say the least. Top 5 according to obviously Kirk Herbstreit. So that's something to think about here as well with Brent Key. I don't foresee him leaving. I think Georgia Tech will deal out the money in order to do so. I think they have the right leadership. Moving forward for their program. You look at Ryan Alpert and everything he did with the Tennessee program, and him coming over with his innovative mind, and obviously, the different funds, the NIL. I think they're going to attract more people. And they recently, guys, just had a sellout crowd, to say the least, at their homecoming game against Syracuse. So I think that's a program you see trending the right way, not just in football, basketball, baseball, women's basketball, softball, anything you could think of. And I think they're going to bring more revenue into the program moving forward, which bodes well for Coach Key and all the athletic programs. So I don't really foresee him going anywhere. I feel like all the resources is there for him to succeed and obviously make the coin he wants to. I feel like you obviously have John Summerall from Tulane. They're having an awesome season. Great pickup in the portal with Jet Reslav, to say the least. But I feel like for this LSU gig, it's going to have to be a knock it out of the park hire or a big time hire. Now, when I say that, I'm saying it's going to have to be a very notable name, right? So like a Joe Brady to me makes a lot of sense, right? Obviously, offensive coordinator. Think about where his legend kind of started. Started at LSU, obviously, with their program with Ed Orgeron as the head coach, right? When that LSU offense was spectacular with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? That kind of started him taking that next jump. Then he went obviously to the NFL. Now he's offensive coordinator, obviously, for the Buffalo Bills, yada, yada. It makes a lot of sense if he goes back there and is now the head coach, obviously, for a college football program. That would make a lot of sense. Or Ed Orgeron has also come out and said he's interested in rejoining LSU. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do that move again, what I'm saying, but that's just something to ponder and kind of think about a little bit to see if there's any muster, if there's anything valid there as well, man. But it feels like this job is probably Lane Kiffin's to lose, whatever he decides to do in terms of the money and the revenue. But if you had to decide, as I said on my channel, between Florida and LSU, I'm going to go LSU. I feel like LSU is going to be a little bit more patient with you. I feel like LSU is going to give you chances in order to prove your worth and you're worthy. And I feel like it's a program that's going to support you in all kind of ways. And I feel like it's run better than what Florida is doing currently right now. So for me, if I'm LSU, I'm going after Lane Kiffin. I'm going to have a talk or discussion with Nick Saban just to see, what is out there. And then I start rallying up maybe even a couple NFL offensive coordinators or even coaches to come to the college ranks. We've seen that here recently with obviously Coach Bill Belichick and, him coming from NFL formerly down to college. Now, it'll take time, but the good thing is LSU, like, they haven't lost any of their recruits, right? They even just landed a guy as well. So that goes to the recruiting staff, the coordinators doing a really good job of keeping everything together despite them losing their head coach. Because sometimes when you see that head coach leave, you'll see recruits go. We've seen it with Penn State. They lost damn near all the recruits, all the top recruits from 2027, 2026, right? We haven't seen that with LSU just yet. So that says a lot about the relationships that those coaches have there with the players and what they have in obviously the state of Louisiana as well. So it's going to be interesting to say the least, but this is obviously the hot board per Pete Nakos and how he sees it kind of shaping out and kind of how he's been piecing it obviously together, man. So I just wanted to bring it up. That's a big topic right now in college football. So I want to give you guys the latest on that. One moment. All right, I am back, y'all. Okay, so that is the biggest headline for the show for today. That's how we wanted to obviously start it off. But let's keep it rolling, man. We got a big one for you guys. Let's talk biggest losers from week 10. I'm going to start with obviously South Carolina. When you have a lead and you have Alabama on the ropes, you got to handle your business, right? You did everything in that game you needed to do. You made it tough, right? You got the defensive stops. You created pressure. You made Ty Simpson feel uncomfortable. But in those key moments where you had a 22-15 lead, you have to make the plays down the stretch in order to win the game. It is just that simple. They did not do that on Saturday. And end up what made it worse is your star quarterback, Lenore Sellers, had an okay game. He fumbles the ball, gives obviously Alabama in their territory the ball, and they go in and win the game. Just inexcusable. You cannot have that happen. And it's unfortunate because I like Shane Beamer as a head coach. I like what they've been able to do here recently. Offense has been kind of iffy all year long. They're not protecting well. We've seen that a little bit in the Virginia Tech game when they played them to open the season. Unfortunately, but this was the game I had circled for Bama that could be a game they might struggle a little bit, and we've seen it, right? We weren't seeing these typical things with Alabama when it comes to playing other teams, but this one just felt like it had an upset in the making, and South Carolina really missed out on the opportunity to beat one of the nation's best, and just to give the organization, give the program, give the fans something to be excited about. With that struggle, obviously you've seen that on Saturday, and obviously led to them losing the game. Unfortunately, just not making the plays you need to make down the stretch. Definitely, obviously, one of my biggest losers in this one. Now, I went back, my next loser, also in SEC, I went back and watched this game. Hold on. Now, I went back and obviously watched this game, y'all. Now, I obviously went back and watched this game. When you look at Mississippi State and you obviously look at Texas, Mississippi State had a golden opportunity in this game to win, right? They could have easily won that game, but they didn't handle their business, right? And you were up 38-21, almost like my Bengals to a degree, y'all, to be 100% honest. Like, handle your business, close the game out, right? And I thought as soon as the running back broke loose and had that, I was like, oh, it's over for Texas. They finna lose. Their college football playoff hopes are done. But credit Texas for continuing to fight. Big plays down the field to Ryan Wingo. Arch Manning looked like his best self, you know what I'm saying, in that game. And I really think that's going to be kind of that building block for them and that chance for them to be able to move forward and kind of the plight of his career go up. You always see different moments and things like that that helps that part out. And I think that was another moment for Texas in order to kind of build. It's been a struggle. You should have lost against Kentucky. You didn't. You should have lost Mississippi State. You didn't. But you've been on the road, kind of to Coach Sarkisian's point, for over a month or nearly a month. You've been away from your fans. You've been away from DFK. That makes a difference. You're not going to have that no more. You're back home. So getting those gritty wins on the road, even though it's lesser competition compared to what you're going to play up here in the future, it helps you. And I really think this builds moxie for the Longhorns. This really helps Arch Manning, who has struggled a lot this season, see the ball being able to be caught, putting the ball where you need to place the ball and putting the receiver's hands. Seeing Ryan Wingo have his best game as a Texas Longhorn this season. Those things like that really helps you. And then you have a guy like a Colin Simmons who's stepping up big for you, 25 tackles this season and 7 sacks. Then you have pieces in line in order for you to start making some noise. We know about the defense. We know about Colin Simmons. We know about Anthony Hill Jr. and Michael Taft on the back end. We know about Grayson Littleton, who's obviously that star freshman. We know about the pieces. It's just, can this offense put up enough points, even though their running game has struggled? So for Mississippi State, you had that game in the bag. You're the biggest loser because you didn't handle your business. Do what you're supposed to do and come out on top. They did not. They failed to do that, and they struggled mightily in that game to close it out. And when their offense put up hella points, you know what I'm saying? Hella points. You got to do what you're supposed to do to come out on top. They did not do that, man. And obviously, I believe now they have not won an SEC game under their head coach just yet. Obviously this season. So they got some things to work out, man. And it's crazy because they started off the year so well. I think they were like 3-0 or 4-0 at one point, you know, obviously before this schedule. And since struggled. And obviously we're seeing that, man. And I mean, that's just a game. Same thing. That's the proverbial knockout punch for Texas in their season. I don't see them rebounding with that, with Georgia still on the schedule, right? And Vanderbilt still on the schedule. You're not rebounding from that. You know, after Mississippi State loss, it's over, right? It's over. So you had it. You got to capitalize on your moment. So it's the same thing for both teams. Mississippi State and obviously South Carolina have to capitalize on your moments when you have a lead and you have really your opponent, your opponent within grasp, right? You can put your foot on their neck. You got to put your foot on their neck. They failed to do so, man, and that's why they're my biggest loser, because they didn't handle business. They didn't do what they were supposed to do in that game. Now, my biggest winner, obviously, is Vanderbilt. Another massive win, handing Missouri another loss. Did it a different way, which I was more impressed with Vanderbilt. They just won in different ways. Obviously, they're in the top 10. They've been doing their thing. Pavia looks like a Heisman candidate with his spectacular play this year, but it wasn't a lot of points, right? They just grinded out the game and was able to come out with a 17-10 victory. Now, they obviously knocked out Bo Prabula in the game and had to replace with true freshman star Matt Zollers, who made a nice throw in that game and did what he could. But credit to Vanderbilt for handling business at home, massive environment, right? ESPN College Game Days in the building. You got to handle your business, and they did that. So credit them, Diego Pavia, with another masterful game and being able to beat Missouri and hang on to that top 10 spot. You know what I'm saying? So they're my biggest winners from this past weekend with what they were able to do. Next up, my guy has to be Memphis. Memphis had a big-time game. 229 total yards through three quarters in that game, and they were trailing after the third quarter, 31-17, right? And remember, USF was up. This is the game you need. You already had the loss earlier this year to Miami, right? You can't have too many losses in the American if you're going to have a chance, right? Because remember, you're trying to get that group of five spot over the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, in these different conferences that are in the group of five. Because remember, you're battling against all those teams. It's not like the SEC or ACC or Big 12 where, you know what I'm saying, you're still battling for spots, but you're pretty much guaranteed a spot at the bare minimum if you're a champion. No, you have to still earn the spot, even if you are a champion, and be the highest ranked group of five champion in order to have a chance. So it's way more competition for those tier teams compared to Power Four caliber teams. You know what I'm saying? So a missed opportunity for USF, right? Same thing. Got to close it out. But credit to Memphis. They got their quarterback back in the game. I know Antoine Hill started against UAB. They didn't let that affect them, right? And I think that's the big key in college football that we see coaches have to do, right? You can't let a loss bleed into something else, right? You can't let a loss bleed into another game and kind of carry on and carry on. That's why Penn State got up out of there. That's why LSU, despite being 5-0, I believe at one point, is their head coach Brian Kelly's up out of there, right? You cannot let the losses bleed, and once they do, man, it just makes it tough, you know. So credit to Memphis, man, phenomenal win. They're now number 25 ranked. So big win for them, and everything out in front of them now. You're still going to have Navy on the schedule. That could be a massive win for you. They're probably going to be ranked by the time you play them, I think, humbly. And that could be another, win you could add to your resume of a ranked team that you were able to knock off. So stunning win, but great job by them being able to come out on top. USF missed the field goal, and they obviously won the game. So massive, obviously, for them. So those are my biggest winners and losers. Winners, Memphis, obviously Vanderbilt. Biggest losers, South Carolina and Mississippi State, man. You handle business, you wouldn't be in that situation. Bottom line. All right. All right, y'all. So those are biggest winners and losers. Let's keep rolling. Let's go ahead and get to these matchups, man. Let's start with the big one. Ohio State. Make sure this thing's buffering. Ohio State versus Penn State. Big game for both teams, man. Ohio State, number one in the country for a good reason. This is one of the best defenses in the country. 5.86 points per game they're giving up. I'll say that again. 5.86 points per game they're giving up. Just 217 total yards in games. Oh, my lords. Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles. Defensive line is nasty. You got Caden McDonald. You know what I'm saying? They're different. Ohio State is different, man. And when you had a caliber defense, it makes it tough. Now, if this was at Penn State, I might be like, okay, hey, let me go out on a whim and say, Penn State. But I don't see it. You got to go to Horseshoe Bend, right? Your quarterback, Gruckmeyer, only had 93 yards in the last game. Ethan Gruckmeyer. I don't see it, right? You had to lean on your rushing game. You still lost to Iowa. You had to obviously lean on your rushing game with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. That's the only chance if you Penn State that you have in this game to win, right? It is running the football and keeping the ball away from Julian Sand, who's having a phenomenal season. 80% completion rate. 19 touchdowns. He has been balling. He's been doing what he's supposed to do. Doesn't get enough love. Cardinal Tate, obviously one of the top receivers. And then obviously have Jeremiah Smith, the generational talent, one of the best, in the game currently as it is right now. It's a tough matchup for Penn State, man. I don't see it. Now, like I said, if they were at home, coming off the bye week, probably come out playing inspired football, And I'm not gonna lie, was it Happy Valley? It's a tough place to play, right? When they had their little whiteouts and stuff like that, that atmosphere it's either Happy Valley or Nappy Valley. It's tough to win, but it's different when you're going on the road. You don't got your head coach, you don't got your quarterback Drew Allen no more. You have to lean on the running game. Receivers have been okay this year, but haven't been to the level that they're supposed to be. I just humbly, y'all, I just don't see it. I don't see them going and beating Ohio State. I think if you're gonna knock off Ohio State, you need them to come to your building, right? And you need to host them. I think that is the only way. I don't see them losing games at Horseshoe Bend. Now, one of the teams that may be able to pull it off is Michigan. Remember, last year they beat Ohio State in Ohio State. But remember, that rivalry between those two teams are just different. You know what I'm saying? It's next level. Now, that's one you could see potentially pull off and knock off Ohio State with one loss this year. But outside of them, I just don't see it. And I don't think Penn State has enough to beat Ohio State this week. I just don't think so. And I think with that top-ranked defense, they're going to be able to get out the quagmire a little bit. They're going to stop that run, hold it about 3 yards per carry, and they're going to shut it down. And Julian Sims going to have another phenomenal game added to his credit, man. Barring any miracles, I don't see Penn State winning that game. So I'm going the Ohio State University massive win over Penn State. I'm going to go 31-7. I don't see Penn State scoring a lot. I see them shutting them down, and I see the Buckeyes coming out with a big win. I'm going Ohio State. All right, man. Next one. All right, now I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Hold on, my bad, y'all. I'm supposed to be pulling up the game so y'all can see it with me. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I'm talking about these games and this got it on me. Okay, all right, I got y'all. Let me pull up this one real quick because a lot of times I would do my share screen. Okay, massive game, bro. And I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what the analysts have said, but a playoff spot on the line. A playoff spot is on the line. If you Tennessee, you're gonna have all the top recruits in the game at this game. David Gabriel Goggins, 5-star prospect out of Baylor, Tennessee, is gonna be at this game. Tristan Keys, I believe, is gonna be at this game. Right? Amari Latimer, Wisconsin commit, is gonna be at this game. This is must-see TV. Trust me, must-see TV. And going into this game, or before the game, Oklahoma lost to, obviously, Ole Miss, which we talked about earlier, gave up 431 yards of offense. Oklahoma was number 1 in total defense. You know what I'm saying? They numbers like 6 or 7 now. But they were number 1 in total defense. We know about the dogs that Oklahoma has on their defensive front. Kip Lewis and obviously Robert Spears Jennings. We know about the players they got on that D-line and obviously linebacker position, right? But they facing another animal, right? Tennessee is different. You look at Joey Aguilar in the season he's having. He's been an absolute stud. 2,344 yards passing this year and 18 touchdowns. Last week against obviously Kentucky, he cooked them for 3 touchdowns and nearly 400 yards. They got probably the best wide receiver trio in the country. Braylon Staley, Mike Matthews, and Chris Brazel II. I mean, how do you stop them boys? And then what I love about Tennessee and Coach Heupel, they don't just air the ball out. They also run the rock. You know what I'm saying? They run the rock. That's what makes them different. Now, Deshaun Betcher's been a little banged up, but they got Star Thomas, Peyton Lewis. They got pieces they can get a ball to, and they can milk you away. And that's what allows this team to be so great. Now, the defense is, question mark. The good thing is, I don't know if he's going to play, but there was a positive update on Jermon McCoy, right? He is practicing in pads, but was limited, right? So that is a good sign for the Volunteers, okay? Because you get your star cornerback back. Now, they got a lot of players on this team that's going to probably be draft eligible, especially in the first round. Look at Colton Hood. You look at Jermon McCoy, right? Arian Carter. Like, you look at some of these pieces that's going to probably be draftable in the first round, right? But it has to be better play defensively, right? And you have to be able to slow down John Material, who is, since he's been back, struggling a little bit in this offense. It's still kind of like a running game a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We know they got pieces on the outside that can catch the ball at a high level. But his offense ain't clicking how it was clicking when he was first in there and he was at that forefront of that Heisman conversation. You know what I'm saying? So they got to kind of figure back out their keys and things like that. That's going to be very, very important for Oklahoma in this game. And defensively, you gotta improve. You cannot give up 400 yards, right? And Tennessee offense dynamic, man. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the best in the SEC along with the Ole Miss. So it's an interesting game. I wouldn't be surprised if this is maybe a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised, if this is a 2-touchdown game. Two teams that can obviously score with some of the best of them. But this is a playoff game. Nobody's saying it, but this is a playoff game. The winner, you keep your hopes alive of making the CFP. The loser, you have 3 losses now in the SEC. How in the hell do you overcome that? I don't know, because you still have other teams on the docket. For Oklahoma, you still got big time games coming up. Tennessee, you still got big time games coming up. How do you overcome a 3rd loss? So that's why I say I think the playoffs are on line in this one for both of the teams. I know 18-14, and remember, the poll comes out on Tuesday. Don't forget that. Poll comes out on Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? So we'll know kind of how it's going to look moving forward and how the committee is ranking these teams, which is very important. So this is a big game. Whoever wins this, playoff hopes are going to be better. I think they'll probably even move up from 14 or wherever they ranked at, closer to outside of the top 10 or right inside the top 10. But this one, I love the Oklahoma defense in their front. It scared me a little bit going against Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss. I'm going to give it to Tennessee. I am nervous that they won't be able to get enough stops in this game. They do have Joshua Josephs and Jackson Moy and Hobbs. They got pieces, but they got to come ready to play. But you don't get no bigger than November 1st, ABC, prime time at Neyland Stadium. The fans going to have it rocking. The players got to show up and perform. It is really just that simple. So I'm going Tennessee, 31-17 victory over the Oklahoma Sooners. They should be able to handle business and do what they do best and come out on top and score a lot of points. I'm going with the Volunteers. Massive win over Oklahoma. All right, man. Now we're going to hit the next one, man. I will not be at this game because it's on the road. But obviously, how about pull this up for y'all. How about them Yellow Jackets, man? How about the season that they're having? They've been a great team this year, man, just in terms of what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, highly ranked. Right, look at red zone, they're ranked number 12, top 35 in scoring defense this year. Have not led up over 24 points in the tenure of Blake Gideon. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Right? Now they're gonna give up some yards, you know what I'm saying, things like that, but they play a bend don't break style. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you can have all the yards in the world, but when you get down here to this red zone, we're gonna stop you and force you to kick 3 points. We're not gonna let you get touchdowns. And the fact they won last week over Syracuse, not having a lot of their key pieces, no Jai Gilmore, no Harrison Moore, no Malik Rutherford, right? Zachary Toby goes out of the game with an injury, no Amari Harvey, right? No Akilo Stone, and they was able to come out and win. That talks about the depth this program has built. It's talking about the recruiting efforts they've done and also how they use the transfer portal. It's crucial, right? Now this week we'll find out tomorrow because I'll be at the press conference what they're going to do in terms of, their injury report. Who's going to play, who's not going to play. I don't know quite yet what that's going to look like for them, But this is probably one of the last big tests for them up until they play Pittsburgh and obviously Georgia, right? No disrespect to Boston College, but this is a big test for Georgia Tech going on the road. Sellout crowd for NC State and homecoming, But the key for the Yellow Jackets, getting out to a good start. King has already talked about they haven't played a complete game yet. And when I talked to him in the presser today, he basically was saying they have to keep their eyes obviously focused. And another thing he said is, the bad plays, right? Just eliminating the brain farts, right? Eliminating those key plays that kind of, go on and on. Just being able to eliminate that, which will allow them to kind of be able to hit on all cylinders consistently throughout the game, right? And we've seen it. Like second half, they're just a better football team. I don't know what they say at halftime. I don't know how they adjust, but they're just a better football team in the second half compared to the first. But NC State is a team with a prolific offense. You look at C.J. Bailey, who's having a very good year. He's a lot better than what it was last year. Already has the same amount of touchdowns that he had a year ago with 17. He's throwing the ball really well, And then they have one of the best backs in the ACC. Plain and simple. They got one of the best backs in the ACC, in Hollywood Smothers. He has nearly 900 yards rushing this year, and he's been a problem. Last few weeks, he just hasn't touched the ball as much. Last week, 8 carries, 86 yards in the tub. Right? Best game was against Virginia when he rushed for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns on 17 carries. So do you have an answer for that? And the reason it's a little concerning for Georgia Tech is because you are not the best defense against the run, right? I think they're like in the hundreds defending the run. So that's an issue. That is a problem. You know what I'm saying? And they have the linebackers to do it, but they have to be able to hit him and wrap him up because he's a guy that keeps his legs turning and he makes it tough. You know what I'm saying? Defensively, they're going to have a lot of opportunities. right? Defense gives up a lot of big plays, so they'll have their chances with Isaiah Canyon, and we'll see if Jordan Allen gets a little bit more burned depending on the injury to Malik Rutherford. Obviously you look at Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson. Dean Patterson is probably the most explosive receiver on this team. So they're going to have their chances because teams always gear up to stop their run, gear up to stop Malachi Hosley, they gear up to stop Jamal Haynes, and they gear up to stop Haynes King. So that allows you to hit obviously those receivers, and then obviously the tight ends. We've seen kind of that proliferation of them getting more involved, right? Josh Beatham having his best game, 2 touchdowns, should have been 4. Luke Harpering being able to get more touches, JT Byrne getting more touches than Brett Seether. So they got the pieces. It's just executing at a high level and doing what you're supposed to do if you Georgia Tech on the road against the Wolfpack. And this is a game, if you're Georgia Tech, you cannot get down early. Can't be down 14-0 in this game and trying to come back. Stay within the game early on until you figure it out in the second half and you can pull away, right? Continue to use your tight ends at a high level. Get more pressure with the quarterback. I'm expecting a big game from Montre Bradford. I'm saying I think he should be inserted more into the starting lineup. Just what he's been able to do this season, leads the team with 2.5 sacks this year. I need to see that number a little bit more up before the end of the year, at least 5 to 6 sacks this year for them. So that part they got to figure out. But they should be able to handle business against NC State. They should be able to come out on top. So I'm going Georgia Tech. I'm saying I'm going to put some respect on NC State and say they make it close. I'm going to go 31-20 victory for Georgia Tech. I think they make enough plays in the second half to pull away and then win this game with a 31-20 victory over obviously NC State. It won't be easy, if you're Georgia Tech, but just making the plays you need to make, making the stops, and obviously slowing down Hollywood Smothers has to be the game plan. Obviously for them in this game if they want to come out on top and have a chance. So I'm going with the Yellow Jackets in this one with a big victory over NC State. All right. There we have it. Let's keep rolling. Let's see. All right, man. Massive game for my Hurricanes, man. Like I said, we gotta handle business. Tough game coming up against SMU, going on the road. Probably one of our toughest games the rest of the way besides Pittsburgh, which is a road game. But all I want to see from my team is taking care of the football. The game we lost to obviously Louisville, we turned over the ball way too much. You know what I'm saying? And Carson Beck had 4 interceptions. You can't really do that against SMU. Now, their defense has been known to give up big plays, but they got some ball hawks on the back end, man. And I want to give them boys they just doing their credit. And that is Isaiah Nokobia, 2 interceptions, 7 pass defense, and Ahmad Moses has 3 interceptions. So both of those guys are problems on the back end. So if you're Carson Beck, you cannot leave the ball too far inside. You can't throw late, to a certain side. And I think the key is getting Mark Fletcher going. And that win against Stanford, he had 3 touchdowns, right? Get him going early, obviously, on in the game. Establish that tempo and that play action. Play with a lead. And then let Malachi Tony and C.J. Daniels cook the defense, deep down the field because they can be cooked. But if you're Carson Beck and you're Miami and you're the Hurricanes, take care of the football. That's massive for them. Take care of the football and allow everything else to kind of work itself out. Because when Messendor and Ruben Bain and Bryce Fitzgerald, who didn't play in the last game, but when Ruben Bain and Messendor can pin their ears back, this is a tough team to score on. Bottom line, it's a tough team to score on. And we know offensively they're going to put up points. 34 points they're averaging per game this year, right? So I think for Miami, it's critical. Don't turn over the ball. Now, this could be a high-scoring ACC affair. We've been seeing those more recently, but I feel like Miami has the defense to make the stops. You know what I'm saying? I feel like they have the defense to make the stops in order to make some noise in this one. But it's going to be very important they take care of the football against SMU. If they don't, Kevin Jennings can have a field day. He's having a great season, 2,119 yards passing and 17 touchdowns so far this year, and TJ Harden with 456 and 5 touchdowns. So it's going to be important for them to take care of the football. If they don't, it could be a very, very, very long day. So that's obviously something you're going to have to pay attention to if you're the Hurricanes and obviously think about, But I'm going to go with my team, man. I feel like we should be able to win this game. Only game that worries me remaining is it has to be obviously Pittsburgh, or what they can do with Mason High Central and Desmond Reed and those boys. That game does scare me a little bit. But besides that, if I'm Miami and I'm a fan, we should be able to beat SMU, I think, an inferior opponent and inferior team. So I'm going my Hurricanes 38-14 victory over SMU. think we should be able to handle our business and do what we're supposed to do. Come out on top with a dub. Yes, sir. All right, man. Let's keep rolling. All right, here we go. I don't know why it wouldn't pull up. All right, but a big game in the ACC. Obviously at this point, if you're Clemson, you're kind of playing spoiler. You know what I'm saying? If you're the Tigers, you're playing spoiler. Your season hasn't went how you wanted it to go. Cade Club, they missed obviously a pivotal game last week. You had to go to your backup. You lose the SMU, a few weeks ago. So it's been a tough season for Clemson. But like he said, they could play for pride. They could play for the seniors, and they could play for fight and to get better the next year. Yes, they wasted the NFL caliber roster on both sides of the ball, but you can only get better. And you can really put the proverbial knockout punch on Duke, if I'm humbly honest. And I think with Cade potentially coming back, I haven't seen injury report that says he's not going to play just yet. That comes out obviously tomorrow. I feel like Clemson has everything they need in order to make some noise in this one. Now, it's not going to be easy because Darian Mensah is one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC, right? He's having a phenomenal year. He's airing the ball out. You know what I'm saying? He got good receivers. Cooper Buckhart is one of those receivers that ain't talked about enough. He cooked Georgia Tech for over 170 yards receiving, you know what I'm saying, in that game. So the kid is the truth. 647 yards total this season. He's just that virtuoso guy. So he can be tough to kind of guard and defend. And then obviously Nate Shepard, who's a true freshman running back for them, having a strong season so far for the Blue Devils, right? And then do you have an answer against Vincent Anthony Jr.? Can you protect? We've seen kind of the flaw with Mac Luke and his offensive line has been to protect their quarterback. Do you have an answer for Vincent Anthony Jr.? Remember, he was neutralized when they played against Georgia Tech. They didn't really touch King, really at all. Do you have an answer for them? And obviously that great defensive front for the Duke Blue Devils if you're Clemson. So that's what it comes down to: protecting your quarterback, being able to run the football with Adam Randall, and then just being able to hit on those explosive plays like you did against North Carolina, right? With, obviously Westcott, I believe, is out for the year, but obviously with TJ Moore and all the other pieces that you have, can you hit on those big plays down the field? That's going to be massive for the Clemson and obviously the Tigers in this one, and slowing down that prolific offense. But you got a TJ Parker and the Peter Woods, Sammy Brown and Woody Woodaz. So you got pieces in order to kind of slow them down and stop them. It's just, can you take care of the football and can you make the right plays down the stretch? But I would go upset here. I think I like Duke. I like their offense, but I think Clemson's going to be playing with extra passion. And I think it's a team that's pissed off and angry where they're at currently at 3-4 and 2-3 on the season. In the ACC, I think Clemson handles business and comes out on top against Duke with a major victory. So I'm going the Tigers in that one. I'm going to go a little bit of higher scoring than people think. I'm going to go 38-24 for Clemson. Big victory, obviously, over Duke. All right, last game in the ACC. Okay, all right. This is a big one. Team I've been covering a little bit more, obviously, is Virginia. Okay, here we go. And this is a 3:45 kick. This could have been easily a night game, but they put it during the day on ESPN2. And we see California, a team, that's capable of putting up points, had a heartbreaking loss last week to Virginia Tech, 42-34 in double overtime. Got to be able to make the plays down the stretch. The quarterbacks had an up and down year. Jerron Kiwi Sakabatule, he's had kind of an up and down year, but when he's on, he's on. And one thing I like so far is he's been taking care of that football. He ain't been turning it over. He's been making the right reads and doing what he's supposed to do to help out his team and his bunch. So that's something I wanted to point out. And he's had 200 yards in every game pretty much this season. 1,982 yards passing, 11 touchdowns. Got to come down to interceptions. Has 7 this season for California. But a player to watch is going to be Kendrick Raphael. He's been a stud. 2 rushing touchdowns in their last game against VT. He could do pretty much a little bit of everything. You know what I'm saying? So when you have that, you have a Jacob DeJesus, who's very good for California, has been one of their best weapons. Senior laden receiver, really good route runner, can create separation at the top of his routes. When you have that, you feel pretty good if you're California. They just can't stop nobody. They got good linebackers, they got good players, but they just the bad thing is they can't stop teams through the air. They really struggle in that category. So, if you Virginia leaning on Jamari Taylor, you got to get him back going again. He's had his struggles. You just lost Xavier Ross for the rest of the year with an ACL injury. So does your depth take a hit? Obviously, with that going on, do you lean more on Taylor in that regard, right? And then can you keep Chandler Morris upright, right? Morris got sacked 6 times. They had a big overtime run to help get a touchdown and pretty much be the game-winning touchdown for the Cavaliers. But it's like, can you keep him healthy, right? We know about his journey starting at Oklahoma, playing in North Texas here recently, now obviously at Virginia. But can you keep him upright with that offensive line? Can you give him a little bit of a ground game where he doesn't feel like he has to do too much for this team in order for them to win and come out on top? So those are some key storylines that obviously watching this one. Cam Robinson is a stud. I think one of the best linebackers in the ACC. 13 tackles in the last win for them over North Carolina, and obviously failed 2-point conversion for the Tar Heels. He's been really good this year, and I think he has all of the potential in the world. Only a junior. So it's a big game because this could be a trap game for Virginia. And I think they lose, 4-1 in the ACC. They still got big games coming up, the rest of the way, man. So it's tough. You got to go on the West Coast, long trip from the East Coast. The key thing to watching that game is how slow of a start will they have. Will they be focused and ready and hit California in the mouth? Like, who's going to hit each other in the mouth first? That's going to be one of the biggest questions in this game. Obviously, Jamal Edgerrin's been a player coming on too for the Cavaliers. Had the highest graded PFF grade with 71.3, I believe. And then Jason Prevar is one to watch at virtuoso in the back end. Can play slot, can play boundary, can play safety. Can do a little bit of everything. And his presence this year has been critical, for the Cavaliers. So it's a big one, man. I'm going to go Virginia. I think they should be able to come out on top. Against California, handling their business in order to keep trekking for it. But they have to be careful that they have a plan for Jerron and they slow down Kendrick Raphael as well. But I'm going to go Cavaliers in this one. I'm going to go 28-17 victory over California on the road, 345, obviously at the Golden Bear Stadium. I'm going with Virginia. All right, let's hit the next one. All right, man. I love it, man. Big time ACC game or SEC game, Georgia, Florida. I'll say it again. Georgia, Florida. Yes, sir, man. It's a big game, y'all. It's a big game for both of these teams, man. Georgia, you in a good spot. You're 4-1 in the SEC. You got big games still coming down the pike. You've handled this rivalry here recently. I think winning 6-7, 7-8 in the past matchups. Florida has not had an answer for you. And if you Jordan, I think this is the best quarterback you've had in the past decade. I really believe that. I think he's better than Stetson Bennett. I think he's better than Carson Mack. I do. Gardner Stockton is special, man. When he plays in games, next level. You see him against Ole Miss, 85 plus yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Kid just makes the right plays. He doesn't turn over the football. I think he only had 6 incompletions. Kid is a stud, man. And I like what they're getting out of the running game and Chauncey Bowens. Obviously, Nate Frazier, Josh McCray. Offense has been doing good, and the receivers have been stepping up. And what I like is he's spreading the ball to everybody. It ain't just Oscar Delp or Zachariah Branch or Lawson Lucky or, any of those guys. He's spreading the ball around and getting everybody involved, which has made this offense so potent they can put up a lot of points, and that's just shattering, just yards and things like that. So averaging 33.7 points per game, that's 8th in the SEC. So they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I think it makes it tough. Now, the true chess match of this game is if Florida can get enough stops. A defense that is only, I thought I had the defensive stats. Oh, well. But a defense that has played pretty well this year for Florida. We've seen them against LSU earlier this year where they didn't give up a lot of points, right? Offense threw a pick 6, and then like we had 5 interceptions, and they still only lost by a few amount of points. So Florida has done what they've needed to do this year. It's just can the offense, and they're not bereft of weapons. Like they have Dallas Wilson, they have Vernell Brown III, right? You know what I'm saying? They have Eugene Wilson. Like they got pieces in order to be dynamic, but it's just can you make those plays consistently? Now, a thing to watch is can can Lagway kind of have that breakout game? We have not really seen it this year from him in terms of lighting up a defense. Now, one thing that bows in their favor is Georgia Tech has struggled a little bit with communication issues and being young on the back end this year, right? And unfortunately, Georgia, for whatever reason, they have not created a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which allows you to kind of stay back there, survey, and be able to discern where you need to go with the football, right? And then you couple that with being able to run the ball with Jaden Ball, you know what I'm saying, and keep Georgia balanced. That allows for big play action passes down the field, obviously in big games for your star-studded wide receiver core. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. There is some holes there for Georgia. They did figure it out and patch it up a little bit against Ole Miss in their last game before the bye week. But can they do the same thing on a neutral site? It's going to be a pivotal game for both teams, man. Obviously, big implications in that one. You know, for obviously the Bulldogs. You know, Gators is 2-2, 3-4 in a year, likely done in the college football playoff. You know, but can you be the one team defensively if you're Florida that can kind of knock off Gunnar Stockton in terms of his rhythm, his timing, his touch, and his play on the field this season? We haven't seen it too much. Teams have kind of struggled with him, but that'll be the key to see if Florida's defense can do enough to kind of, you know, I won't say divvy him up, but kind of, you know, rattle him a little bit and force him into some mistakes. But he's not a real turnover prone quarterback. So until I see it from Florida, unfortunately, just fired their coach recently as well. I'm gonna go with the Bulldogs really until further notice, until I see Florida can stand up and make those plays they need to make on the back end, and you know, just make the plays they need to make consistently throughout the game to win. So for that reason, I go with Georgia. But this is a very intriguing game. Don't be surprised if Florida is able to pull something out of their hat and make it tough for Georgia. But the Bulldogs should win that one. I'm gonna go. Let's see. I'm gonna go 35-21 win for Georgia over Florida. All right, let's keep rolling. All right, now this is a sneaky game. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. This is a very sneaky game, and the reason is because Indiana has been one of the best teams in the Big Ten this year, 5-0. They're playing really well under Kirk Cignetti. They're even given a 21.5 favorite according to ESPN Bet Sportsbook. But the reason I have this on upset watch is because Maryland is a team with their true freshman quarterback Malik Washington. They have a chance in any game. Right now, they've struggled obviously a little bit this season, you know, but they have a top-ranked defense. And like I said, one of the best true freshman quarterbacks. They only given up 17.3 points per game. So this is one of those games, like, I don't think it'll be a shootout. This one has defensive game written all over it, right? A game that you could see Maryland escaping with a 2017 victory over Indiana and the crowd going crazy, right? You know, they're a team that ranks, you know, they do score a lot of points, 45.4 per game. So they're getting it done in terms of Indiana and what they're doing this season. If you're Maryland, do you have enough to kind of slow him down? Can you make the Heisman candidate Fernando Mendoza think a little bit more, process more what he's seeing in that moment, and kind of throw him off? It just, you know, it remains to be seen. You know, obviously for them, and if they can do that. Now for Indiana, I like that they're a balanced attack. You got Roman Hemby, you got Kalen Black. Both guys are over 500 yards rushing this season. So if you're Maryland, do you have an answer for that? But they do have a good defensive front, better than what people think when it comes to the Terrapins. They got a good defensive front and one that can create pressure and havoc. So, you know, it's going to be interesting, man, you know, to say the least, and to see if Indiana can avoid it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. I think Maryland with Malik Washington, I think despite their 4-3 record and 1-3 record in the Big Ten, I feel like they feel confident. A lot of eyes going to be in them on CBS. And I think this is a team that you'll be surprised. But with Malik Washington's ability to protect the football, only 3 interceptions, I think this is a game that America can low-key get Indiana. And I know they just ran roughshod over UCLA, but I feel like Maryland's a different animal, and they actually have the pieces in place to make some noise and shock some people despite a 4-3 record. So this one, I'm going with Maryland. I'm going to go upset. Could be wrong. Indiana could blow them out and handle business. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But I feel like Maryland is going to have enough pieces with Malik Washington, with pieces on the outside in order to make some noise. So I'm going with a close victory. 2017 is what I'm going to go over Indiana. They shot the college football world and knock off the number 2 team in the nation in that one. So I'm going with the Terrapins over the Heisman candidate Fernando Mendoza, Elijah Surratt, and those boys. I'm going with obviously Maryland. All right, here we go. Now it's another big game. I'm going with another upset too. In this one, USC and Nebraska. Now this one feels like this is going to be a shootout, right? To me, this one feels like both teams can score at a high level. Both defenses are a little bit compromised. I know there's been games Nebraska defense has played well. You look at the beginning game of the season against Cincinnati, 2017 victory. But I feel like this one with the dynamicism of both of the quarterbacks. You look at the Dylan Raiola. You look at obviously. Um, um, Jada Mayava. Like you got two guys who can really throw that ball and make it tough. I think you will see definitely a couple of turnovers in this game. You look at USC Bishop Fitzgerald leads the nation right now, y'all, in interceptions with 5 so far this season. And credit to Nebraska for already being bowl eligible this year at 6-2. Man, they've been a really good team. And the big question in this one is, can they stop the running game? Just a few weeks ago before they bye, remember, Jeremiah Love ran for 228 on them boys, and Jadarian Price had 93 yards rushing. They had, I think, nearly closely to 400 yards rushing. They're going to face another animal in Nebraska in this game, right, with Emmett Johnson, right? He's one of the best in the Big Ten, 837 rushing yards this year and 9 touchdowns. He flat out just gets it done. So when you have that and you have a quarterback that's emerging with confidence, that's really underrated, that can make any throw on the field, that opens up for you for big plays down the field. Now, he's going to have to be careful with Bishop Fitzgerald being in there and how opportunistic he is. But if you can establish a run with Johnson, you can use play action, hit tight ends, and then you can kind of segue your receiver past the tight end for those deep post routes or corners or whatever it may be in that game. I feel like Nebraska could be one of those teams that pulls it off. I really do, because they can play ball control, keep USC off the field, turnover here or there for Nebraska against USC could be all she wrote in that one. Now, look, USC has a potent offense, right? We know they can run the ball. We know they got Mayava, got the best probably wide receiver duo in the country in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. Both of those guys can fly. Both of those guys are really good. But it's going to be critical for Nebraska to slow down, obviously, the explosives, the big plays down the field. Can they do that at a consistent rate? Can they slow down and shut down a top 5 receiver in the country, according to statistics, in Mekhi Lemon? That's easier said than done. So it's a lot of intrigue in this game. It's going to be on NBC, and I think it's going to be one of the better games of this past weekend. And I feel like Nebraska is one of those teams that can hit kind of that knockout punch on USC. That would be their third loss. They would be 3-2 in the Big Ten. Kind of hard to kind of come back from that in the season. But luckily for USC, they've had their losses, but they've been able to keep ranked, which helps out obviously Notre Dame and them defeating them. So this is like a trap game for me, and I feel like Nebraska is going to be ready. Matt Rule and that offense is going to be ready, and I think they're going to be able to create the plays that Dylan Raiola needs in order to get the ball back to him. So I'm going with Nebraska upset win over USC. I'm going to go shootout, 34-31 win, late field goal, knocks off the Trojans, hands them their third loss of the year, and Nebraska moves to 7-2, saying, hey, we're 7-2, 4-2 in the Big Ten, we should be in obviously ranked, and we should be in that college football playoff conversation. So I'm going with Nebraska with a big win in that one over the Trojans. All right, now this one is kind of crazy because this is such a late kickoff. This game don't start until 10:15, and I wish they were starting earlier. But at the same time, I get it. If you're ESPN, you already got obviously Tennessee, Oklahoma playing. You have some of the top games playing at 7, so I get it. But this is going to be such a good game, and it's at Utah in prime time. It's a tough environment and atmosphere for obviously Cincinnati. I think in their first true big road test, obviously they played Nebraska, but that was at Kansas City, Missouri, neutral field. But this is going to be a true road test because with everything with Utah, their fans always pack it out. The fans give it a college-like atmosphere. Now, the biggest question for Utah is their star quarterback did not play in their previous game, and that's Devon Dampier. So will he be ready to go in this game? Obviously, for the Utes, will he be back, or will they have to kind of depend on somebody else in that situation, right? Devon Dampier has been great. Will it be Brendan Ficklin again, right? 278 yards and 3 touchdowns this year, or will they turn to kind of somebody else? That's the biggest question going into this game for me. If you're a Utah Ute fan, like who's going to be the guy? And then, can their edge rusher, who's one of the best in the country, John Henry Daly, can he be a guy that disrupts Brendan Sorsby and be able to cook that cook that offensive line. 9.5 sacks this year. He's a disruptor. He creates a lot of pressure, strong defensive front for Utah, and they can give you havoc and give you problems. It's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch there to see if Utah can make some noise defensively and really slow down a high-powered attack. Brendan Sorsby has 843 yards passing. They can run the ball, and the key in that one, the reason why you almost want to lean Utah, no Evan Pryor in that game, right? They're going to lean on Tawee Walker, who's averaging 466 yards in this game. So no Pryor for Cincinnati. So I feel like, to me, that creates more pressure on Sorsby. Do they have enough depth to be without Pryor in this game in order to kind of mix it up and take it away? With that and the audience and how prolific of an offense Utah has, averaging 477 yards per game, 267 on the ground, I feel like that almost bows in the favor of Utah. Now, both obviously could be without some of their big players. If obviously Devon Dampier doesn't play, I'm going Cincinnati. But if he does play, I feel like Utah can pull off that upset. But again, I won't know, obviously, their injury report until I think tomorrow is probably when they release it. So it's interesting. I'm going to roll with Cincinnati in this one. I think they can pull it off, get a big victory on the road. But if Devon Dampier plays, I'm going to go Utah. I think they can pull off the upset, man. But this is a kind of a head scratcher a little bit, kind of a toss-up game between two pretty good teams in the Big 12, and really a statement game for Utah. Got to win. You can't lose. You're 3-2 in the Big 12 already. Can't take too many losses if you want to make a CFP, right? Cincinnati, you're in a good spot. If you lose this game, it's not over for you. You are, I think, ranked 17th, but you still have everything in front of you in the Big 12 championship potentially ahead. And remember, Texas Tech and obviously BYU plays in November. So that's going to be a big game that sways things too. So Cincinnati sitting good in a good spot. Utah, must-win game for you. But I'm going to go Cincinnati and the Bearcats with the win on the road. Close game, 24-21 over Utah. All right, y'all. We got one more for the day in terms of the matchups. This one right here, which is actually going to be tomorrow night. So I'll make sure I get this one out first. But Tulane versus UTSA, right? And the reason I bring this up is because Tulane is 6-1, 3-0 in the American Conference. Obviously, UTSA's had their struggles this year. They're not doing really good in conference play. I'm trying to pull up the standings. Y'all give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to share this tab as we go back. So the reason this game is so big, because remember, Navy's a team that's going to be there at the end of the day, right? They're 5-0 this year. Memphis is going to play them later. That is a massive bout between those two teams later on in the season, right? Tulane, obviously, in this big game, they're going to play, against UTSA, who's obviously at the bottom of the American, but a massive game. And we see how good this year that those top 4, top 5 teams in the American have been, right? Navy 7-0 this year. I'm saying big games coming up. I think they play actually Notre Dame too, if I'm not mistaken, this year as well. So Navy's going to have a perfect opportunity in order to make a CFP playoff, especially if they win out. Tulane's a team that's been improved. They obviously got Jake Retzlaff, who's come over and has been big time for them this year. They've been pretty impressive. Memphis, we see what they was able to do last week against USF, handing them their first loss in conference play. And coming back and winning that game after they was down through 3 quarters, right? And North Texas, a team that USF went on the road and hung up, I think, like 50, 60 points on them. So this race is getting very intriguing in the American Conference, which is why, obviously, I wanted to bring that up. And just the importance of this game and how massive it is for, obviously, Tulane. So if you Tulane, you've had back-to-back good seasons. Last year, I think you paid, obviously, for an American championship as well. You're a 5.5 favorite in this one. You opened as a 4.5. But it's a big game, right? It's a big game because it's on the road, and you got a player you got to slow down, right? And obviously Henry is that dude. He's the absolute problem. Robert Henry, third in the FBS right now with 868 yards rushing, averaging 8.3 yards per carry. For UTSA, 8.3 yards per carry. He's been explosive. He's been a difference maker. He's been good all season long for them. You're going to have a plan to slow him down. And you got to get McCown and force him into some turnovers, right? If you're going to have a chance in this one. You got to force him into some turnovers if you want to make a difference in this one. Now, if you Tulane, you feel good, right? The reason you feel good, Retzlaff is a great player for you. He's a dual threat quarterback, running the ball, throwing it. He's had a strong season for you. He's been stepping up big time, but this defense for UTSA is not good. It's not. They're at the bottom ranks of a lot of categories. 584 yards they allow per game and 55 points. That ain't going to get it done. 113th in scoring defense this year. Again, they give up a lot of yards and they give up a lot of points. A lot of the monikers would be bend, don't break. This team bends in a brick. Okay? Plain and simple. So if you Tulane, get out to a fast start, right? Allow your ability for your quarterback to cook their defense, right, and shut down the run, right? It's a team that probably doesn't want to air the ball out. Now, if you go and you get behind the 8-ball and they can chew that clock with Robert Henry, it's going to be a long day if you Tulane. So you got to be able to get out to a good start. The good thing is your defense is one of the better ones. They've been playing really good in the last 3 contests, which they've allowed opponents under 20 points in games and are limiting the running game to just 3.8 yards per carry, right, in those games. That's massive, right, because you're going against a behemoth in a running back that has nearly double the amount of yards that your quarterback has, right? So if you're Tulane, you feel good, but you have to make sure, like I said, you don't turn over the ball, you lean on Retzlaff, and you get out to a good start. Because if you go and you let UTSA go up early on you, 14-0, it could be a long day because they can run and milk the clock with Robert Henry and make it tough. But luckily, your defense has been playing really well against the run, and they've been limiting teams to big gains all year long. But obviously, one of the greatest additions was Jake Retzlaff in the portal. And remember, he came in as a walk-on, right? Because they didn't really have a roster spot for him, but he betted on himself, and now he's the starter for them. 1,428 yards passing this year, and obviously 450 on the ground, nearly 2,000 yards of total offense by his damn self. That's pretty good. That is pretty good in my book. All right. So obviously it's a big one. Got great receivers in Amari Hayes and Shads Preston. So it should be obviously a game they should win. But if they struggle with the turnovers and they allow Robert Henry to go off, it could be a problem. You know what I'm saying? It could be a problem. What's going on, my guy? I didn't even see you had tuned in, man. Appreciate you, man. This is my college football show, man. I try to get everybody ready to go prior to the week starting, man. Or not the week starting, but prior to college football kicking off for the week, man. So I just try to keep y'all boys engaged. And topics y'all ever want to see, man, please let me know. Please let me know, man. But yeah, man, I'm gonna go Tulane in this one. They should handle business, in my humble opinion. They have everything they need. Defense is playing well. This guy, the one thing is slow down Robert Henry Jr., right? And don't play behind the 8-ball. Tulane should roll in this one. 41-17 is my prediction for them to come out on top. Boom. All right, y'all. So as we wrap up the show for today, hope you guys enjoyed. Heisman candidates, right? So let's talk Heisman candidates. My number one right now, I think I'm going to have to go Haynes King. He's number one for me. That performance against Syracuse was phenomenal, man. 395 total yards in that game, 5 touchdowns. He had 304 yards passing and 3 touchdowns through the air, nearly another 100 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely balled out. Whatever the team needs to do and they're struggling in the area, he always overcompensates and comes up big time. He puts his body, his effort, and everything on the line every game to help his team. He should be in the Heisman conversation, and as Coach Key said, he should be in New York with all of them when the Heisman Trophy is given out. That's just what it is. He's that good. He's that great. And he deserves that respect. Put some respect on his name. He's number one in my book. Talk about it, argue with your mama, whatever you want to say. I'm going with Haynes King. Haynes King's that guy. He's just different. He is him. Period. He is him. All right. So that's my number one. Number two, I'm going to go with Ty Simpson. I know it's a game he struggled a little bit against South Carolina, but I still think he's doing everything he needs to do to help this team win. He's one of the best passers in college football this season. And he's the reason why Alabama's had this turnaround. Everybody was writing Alabama off after they lost to Florida State, and we've seen the two parallels. One team has went up since, one team has went down since. That's why you don't always put all your eggs in one basket in week 1 of the regular season. Yeah, it's cool, but again, don't overreact. It's one game. There's so much more season to play. Don't overreact. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at that, Ty Simpson's had a phenomenal year. I think he's closing in on 2,000 yards passing. I like what he's been able to do. He's been magnificent. My number 3, no disrespect to Fernando Mendoza, I'm going to go Julian Sand. I think he deserves some more love and credit for what he's doing. 80% completion percentage this year, 19 touchdowns. He doesn't get talked about enough. But the fact that Ohio State's back in this position, we didn't know. It was question marks around this Ohio State team coming into this year. Will they be as good? They lost all these pieces defensively. We see the defense is still the same. They lost pieces on offense. They did bring back Jeremiah Smith, but will the quarterback be ready? Will he be capable? Will he be apt to help their team and to win? They're doing that and then some, out to an 8-0 record. and they've been obviously balling out. So deserves that credit for that. He's been magnificent this year. I think he's one of the top players in the country. So I'm gonna put some respect on Julian Sand in his name, and I'm gonna put him at number 3. Right, number 4, I'm gonna go Fernando Mendoza. He's been playing good this year. 1,924 passing yards, 24 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, 196 yards on the ground, and 3 touchdowns. Number 2, obviously, team in the country for a reason. He's been doing everything he needs to do humbly so far this year, man. So definitely deserves to be on this list. 5, I'm going to go, obviously, Jeremiah Love. With redshirt freshman quarterback and CJ Carr, you know, that performance he had a few weeks ago against, obviously, USC, phenomenal. 228 yards rushing. He's done everything he needs to do to help his team win. So, you know, I think he's a guy that deserves more love. I know it's running back position, but he's been dominant this year. And I think he has a chance easily to be over 1,000 yards if he's not already. Get to that 1,500-yard mark before the season's over. Jeremiah Love should be in your Heisman ballot. Next up, I got to get some love, obviously, Diego Pavia, doing a little bit of everything. The only reason I don't have him higher ranked because I feel like he's doing it more on the ground, which is fine. It's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like the yards and maybe like those big plays for Pavia are more kind of prevalent in the run game compared to the passing game. Excuse me. So that's why I give it, you know, I put him a little bit lower than the other candidates, but he's having a great year. But can you answer that again going on the road this week when you play against a Texas? We're going to find out. We're going to see if he's able to do that this upcoming week. So that'll be very interesting to say the least. And then last but not least, got to get some love to Gunnar Stockton. He's another player that deserves some love. I think one of the best quarterbacks, obviously, in that conference. He's been a pleasant surprise. We knew that he had some different, I don't want to say psyche, but we knew there was something different about him this year. We knew he had that different level, that different apt. You know, with him, obviously, in the SEC championship, when he took that big hit from several NFL players that are now in the league. But he definitely deserves to be on the Heisman candidate list, and he's been spectacular. Get that man his credit. He's just doing what he's been able to do this season, man. It's been phenomenal. And he continues to come up big when the defense has been petulant, to say the least, and been difficult. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't really stepped up for them as they should. And like I said, he's overcompensating. Same question we had about Carson Beck. Can you overcompensate or can you come up big for a team that's struggling in certain areas? He couldn't. We're seeing Gunnar Stockton do that. He deserves to be in the Heisman list as well. So that's the Heisman. I did forget a game. So as I wrap up the show, I'm going to conclude with this. Right here, I gotta talk about this game because it's a big game in the SEC. I don't know how I missed this, but that's what happens when you're doing your own stuff for your show. But we gotta talk about this one before we wrap up for today, man. Texas versus Vanderbilt, big game in the SEC. You know, good thing for Texas is they may be okay with one more SEC loss. They may be okay, but a third loss team, that might be tough. But remember, their other loss was out of conference, right? So we can't forget that. It's out of conference, the number 1 team in the country. I feel like the committee would still, you know, rank you at a pretty good spot. Again, we'll find out. I'm going to react and have my own reaction when the college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. So y'all stay tuned for that. But Texas should still be a team that should be ranked. But bottom line is handle your business. You're playing a top 10 team. It's a perfect scenario, a perfect situation for you to get a top 10 ranked win. If you Texas, you've seen everything you needed to see in terms of your team stepping up for you. Right? And when I say stepping up for you, your team making plays, right, down the stretch. Your team having resiliency and being able to overcome adversity. Same things we see with the Georgia football program. It ain't always pretty, but they always find a way to win. And that's crucial. And Texas has done it the last 2 weeks over Kentucky and obviously Mississippi State. That's going to help them in the long run. I told you, I'm very high on Texas moving forward. I know it ain't pretty, and the offensive line has not looked great this year. The running game has been non-existent. If you can get anything from the running game, I think you have a chance in this game for sure. But I liked what I see from Arch. I think it's going to help them moving forward. And I think it can propel them a little bit to be where they want to be, which is a CFP, being into, obviously, that conversation for an SEC championship. But it starts with getting a win this weekend, and in 2 weeks you play Georgia, winning that game as well. You got to handle your business. You know what I'm saying? I think they will. They got one of the best defenders in Anthony Hill. They got Colin Simmons as well. We talked about the defensive back room with Michael Taft and Grayson Littleton. Texas is for real. Texas should be able to handle business against Vanderbilt, in my humble opinion. Yes, they're going to have to slow down Diego Pavia. Yes, they're going to have to slow down Cedric Alexander. But remember, stop the running game. Alabama kind of gave you a blueprint of how to stop Vanderbilt, who only put up 14 points against the Crimson Tide. You got to keep your rush lanes. You know what I'm saying? You got to contain and not allow Pavi to go outside. I think the difference in this game is Texas has the same quality of players that Alabama has in terms of their linebacker position, their safeties, and they fly to the football. Yes, they gave up a lot of points, obviously, against Mississippi State. But I feel like in this game, when Pavi is a guy that does a little bit of everything for them, I feel like they can kind of neutralize him a little bit more. And all you got to do offensively is get off to a faster start, protect Arch, allow him to air the ball out, and you should be able to come on top in this game and get a top 10 ranked win over Vanderbilt, who's having a phenomenal year. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to take nothing away from them. 7-1, 3-1 in the SEC. They've been great this year. But if you Texas, this is a great resume building win. If you win this game, you'll be 7-2, 4-1 in SEC play. You know what I'm saying? And another ranked win on your docket. You need this game if you Texas, especially if you want to make a CFP. You at home at DFK, handle your business. Okay? Handle your business. I'm going with the Longhorns. I believe in Arch. I think he's then figured it out. I think the Longhorns have figured it out, and I think you see the offense fully get unlocked in this game. 41-17 victory over Vanderbilt. Texas Longhorns roll in that game over the Commodores. There you have it, y'all. All right, man. So that is it for today's show. The Truth with Najeh Wilkins, man. I hope you guys enjoyed. And again, we're building this, so I know it's going to be a process and time before I get more friends trickling in, but I appreciate all the support on the channel. Make sure y'all boys get me on social media at NAJEH Wilk, WILK on all platforms, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right. Peace.